Kavanaugh, you gotta get up.
What time is it?
It's 7:30. Come on.
I'm coming.
Look at all this food! What's up, guys? Unfortunately, I can't go inside because I don't want to get this ear sick. But that doesn't stop me from helping. Thank you, H&S Bakery. Thank you, Butler's Orchard.
Is Will coming?
Look at all this stuff. Oh, somebody came in the house.
Oh, yes.
Shout out to Coach Joel for letting me use his gym space. You reach, I teach. I'm cooking for my love family, guys.
Hello. Welcome to Afrique Today. Good evening. My name is Alain Pierre. I'm very happy to be here. You're watching Afrique Today, the show where we bring you helpful resource and information and what is happening in our area and around the world. And you can just watch Afrique Today on 4 platforms at the same time: Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and our website www.afriquetoday.com. You can also just download Afrique Today app. Afrique Today is already available on Smart TV, Roku TV, and also Amazon Fire Stick. Download our application. Download Afrique Today app today. Okay, we will continue our conversation today. Our host today is Dr. Manka. She's with me now live. Over to you, Dr. Manka.
Thank you very much, Alain. Good evening and welcome to you all. This is a series again on brought to you by the Immigrant Community Services. It's a series of virtual conversations where we're bringing you critical resources and information as we deal with the COVID-19 pandemic. My name is Manka again, as Alan mentioned, and I'm honored to be your moderator. I want to welcome our special guests tonight. We're hoping to have 3 full segments where we're going to have some updates from Councilmember Jawando if he's able to join us. I know he's very busy trying to work things out as this pandemic continues. Then we're going to talk with a really great young man, Kavanaugh Bell, who's a founder of a nonprofit called Cool and Dope. And then we'll move on to talk to Dr. Eliza Thompson, Mrs. Agnes Bangura, and Mrs. Miriam Kuruma about caring for kids with disabilities during this time. And so we will basically start with talking to you, Kavanaugh. So Kavanaugh is a first grader. He's a budding philanthropist. And I'm sorry, I should mention that we're going to have some time for question and answer. So please, if you have any questions as we go through, just start putting them in the chat, whatever platform you're using, as Mr. Allen mentioned, YouTube or Facebook, and we'll get to those questions towards the end of the show. And so we'll start with you, Kavanaugh. So Kavanaugh is a first grader, and he's Kavanaugh Bell. We're happy to have you in our midst today. And he's a first grader on a mission to bring critical supplies and food to those in need during this coronavirus pandemic. Over the past few weeks, Kavanaugh has mobilized grassroots community outreach movement, and which is aptly named Love is Greater Than COVID-19, and was funded initially by his $600 life savings, and has been greatly expanded through generous donations from his community and people over the world. And he really continues to help people in need. I'm sure you all saw his video at the beginning of the segment. So Kavanaugh, thank you so much for joining us today. Can you tell us how old you are and why you decided to start your nonprofit?
Yes, I'm 7 years old, and I decided to start my nonprofit because I was being bullied. And I didn't want kids to feel the same way I felt because I had a darkness inside of me, and I didn't eat for 11 weeks. So that's why I decided to ask my mom if she would be sad if I died. But then I told her if I can start my own nonprofit called Cool and Dope.
Wow, that's good. So thanks to your mom for helping you do that. So how are you feeling being at home all the time now?
So how I'm feeling being at home like all the time now is just, I feel like I can't help as many people because it's coronavirus season. So I gotta make sure I stay safe, but I know that I can still help others.
Good. And so I know you're helping others and you're definitely trying to give them food. So what would you tell other kids, other children who are at home and struggling to study online?
So I'd say stay positive and just focus on learning because like I know that I'm bored being on online school, but right now learning is the best thing to do because right now this is just a great time to just learn because I feel like when you learn you can get smarter and whatever you believe you can achieve and just focus. Because I know we're going through some weird times right now, but we just have to stay positive.
Good. So what is your favorite subject in school?
My favorite subject, well, yeah, it's math. I like to play recess though. Outside. Yeah.
That's good. So how many people have you served so far with this Greater Than Love Food Pantry?
Yes. So in 3 weekends, I've helped 1,038 people. But since it's the 4th weekend, and since the weekend already passed, basically, I've helped 1,578 people in 4 weekends.
Wow, 1,500 in 4 weekends. That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So who's helping you do this?
So my cousins. So I like to call them the Cool and Dope crew, but but I really call them as positive creators because they were really helping me. And also, everyone that donates, you can go to coolndope.com to donate. So everyone that donates is a positivity creator, and they help me. Yeah, and my mom and my coach. Thanks to my coach, like was in the video. What I couldn't do this without him because he's the one that actually donated his gym space. So I just want to say thank you to Coach Joel because I couldn't help as many people in 4 weekends without him.
Wow, you have a really big support system behind you. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So, how can people help support the work that you're doing?
So people can help support the work that I'm doing by donating because that would really help me a lot because it takes $3,000 to restock the community pantry. So go to cooldope.com to donate. But if you're in need or you know someone in need or maybe if you have an elderly neighbor, go to cooldope.com to request a care pack and just stay positive. And what will really help me is if you can do the same, but I know that we have to stay safe during these times.
Yes, we have to stay safe. And you said they should go to coolndope.com to donate. Okay.
Yes.
Wow, what an amazing young man. So I know we started talking before the show, and I've been hearing a lot about the work that you're doing. You're really quite an inspiration to many people, and you've helped more people than you can ever imagine. I hope that you even helped out in another food pantry in Virginia.
Yes.
Okay. So, what special message do you have to tell our viewers tonight about, helping out even when it's difficult, like now?
Yeah, so I just want to say whatever you believe, you can achieve. Don't ever let anyone tell you that you can't do something because like anyone can have an impact no matter their age, and I know it.
So, we have a question that just came in actually for you, and people were asking if they can donate food products too, and where can they send that to?
Yes, so you can wow, yeah, you can donate products um and we can pick them up. Yeah, we can pick them up, but I don't yeah, we can pick them up and it's fine. You can send food products. It doesn't have to be all donations. It could be food products. It could be paper towels. It could be toilet paper. It could be cups. Anything would really help.
Okay, okay, great. Definitely, we'll put your website on the Immigrant Community Service website information so they can reach out to you then. Wow. I'm so impressed and I'm so amazed with the work that you're doing. So keep it up, keep it up. I would like to give a special thank you to your mom, Miss Lacey. I'm sure she's really helping you, and thank you too to your coach who gave out this gym space for you to do this thing. So keep doing what you're doing, taking something that was challenging for you at the beginning, the bullying, to really launch into something that is bigger. And so everyone, please go out and donate or support coolanddope.com and can support what Kavanaugh is doing. This is something that we really need as a community. So thank you so much, Kavanaugh.
You're welcome. I have one more thing.
Sure.
So I just have a couple shout outs. Thank you to Buga de Peppo for helping me. Because they sent like on the video, they sent me like 500 meals. So I just want to say thank you to Buga de Peppo. Thank you to H&S Bakery because they gave us over 700 loaves of bread. Because the first weekend they sent us 200 loaves of bread, and that really helped us a lot. And thank you to Rock Hill Orchard and Butler's Orchard for sending us all this food.
And I just want to say hi, Kavanaugh. It's Councilmember Will Jawando. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, good. So I was so happy to see that you were going to be on tonight. I got to honor Kavanaugh when he for some of the anti-bullying work he had done during Anti-Bullying Awareness Month. So it's good to see you're still keeping up the work and trying to help people.
Yeah, good to see you too.
Very proud of you.
Yes, we are all very proud of you, Kavanaugh. Thank you so much for the work you're doing.
Thank you.
And bye.
Bye.
Welcome, Councilmember Will Jawando. Thanks so much for coming to join us. So now that we have you, we'd like you to, give us an update on what the city and county government is doing to really help us survive through these tough times.
Yes. Well, thank you for having me. And sorry, I was in the Zoom waiting room for a little while. These new meetings, it's a little different.
Technology, yes.
But it's great to be with you. And hold on, my daughter. Okay, thank you. Another sidestep of Zoom. My daughter walking in. So we've been very busy. We have had council session this week on Tuesday, and we'll have another one tomorrow. We're focused on many things. Food insecurity is a big issue. Just to start off where Kavanaugh left off, we know the longer this goes, with more than 1 in 10 Americans out of work, the ability to have healthy, accessible groceries and fresh fruits and vegetables is really difficult. For the past 2 weekends in the eastern part of the county in White Oak, where there's a large African population, French-speaking African population as well, we've been handing out, through a partnership with the Capital Area Food Bank, 500 boxes of groceries, and within an hour, they were gone. We had to unfortunately turn people away. And this weekend, on Saturday at 11 a.m., we'll be at the East County Regional Service Center in Briggs Cheney, off of right there at Greencastle, giving out groceries again, and hopefully we'll have a higher number this time to give out. And it just underscores the need. We did 2 things. We are giving more money to food banks, about $750,000. We introduced a supplemental appropriation for that, and we'll probably need to do more. We also did some big things on renting and renter protection this week. We passed a $2 million appropriation to help people with direct rental assistance. And so if you're having trouble paying your rent, this is money that you can get through our Department of Housing and Community Affairs, DHCA, and it's in the form of eviction prevention and rental assistance programs for Montgomery County. So if you're in need, visit Montgomery County MD.gov and type in rental assistance, and you'll be able to access those programs. I also passed my emergency legislation that would cap rent increases during this time. Unfortunately, many people have been receiving rent increases even though they're having trouble paying their regular rent. And we thank the landlords who are doing the right thing and not increasing rents, but some are. And so this would cap increases of rent at 2.6%. The way I introduced the bill, you couldn't have increased rents at all, but it got amended to allow 2.6%, which is at least better than what was happening where we were having 10, 20, 30% increases in some cases. So those are 2 rental protections that are in place now, both on rent direct money and rental assistance, and limiting the amount or in capping increases. We've got a lot to do, though. We opened 2 new testing sites this week, one in Wheaton and in Germantown. You need to have an appointment, but we're also working to expand our outreach and connection in those communities that have high incidences of cases. And we know we have 3 zip codes, 20902, 20904, and 20906, where we have heavy Black and Latino populations, where some of the highest cases in the state. So we're going to be sending teams into those areas to help people access testing, but also setting up a hotline so that if you need to call and get a referral and see what your symptoms are to get testing, because you still need a referral from a primary care physician, then that will help people who don't have that in place. So there's a lot of things we're doing to try to make sure that we keep people safe. We also had our first round of business grants. I think I talked about that when I was with you all last time, for small businesses and nonprofits. We had over almost 7,000 businesses and nonprofits apply for these $75,000, up to $75,000 grants. The first round of 10 million went out. The second round of another 10 million, we're working on getting out here in the next week or so. We're probably going to need to add some additional money to that. And so we're particularly for our small and ethnic businesses, we're trying to target some money to that area. So a lot of things going on. As we try to stay home and keep people safe, we realize that the economic, the food, the disparities in testing and in deaths are all things that we have to address. And I'm working very hard to do that.
Thank you so much. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of information. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I never know how long you want me to go. I don't want to ramble, but if you need anything, as always, if any of your viewers, you just call our office. It's 240-777-7811, 240-777-7811, or you can send me a message on social media. I'm at Will Jawando, which is on your screen, WILLJAWANDO, on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. You can send me a message, send my office, or you can email our office. If you just Google Will Jawando, our office comes up. You can contact us that way too. So we have a resource page up at our website of links at the federal, state, and local level for information about how to respond. We know it's tough right now, but we're going to get through this together.
Yes. Thank you so much, Councilmember. Yeah.
No problem. And I'm so glad that you all are talking about dealing with children with that have special needs and how to deal with that. I mean, my daughter, who actually just came in, is autistic, and it's one of those things where whether you're anyone, or you're an adult, a child, this is a stressful and you can have a lot of anxiety, but particularly for our students with special needs, this can be a particularly troubling time. So I just want to thank your other guests and for you all for continuing to host these forums on very important topics.
Thank you. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Take care. Ms. Thompson, good to see you.
Thank you. You too.
And so we'll now move on to our next segment with Ms. Eliza Thompson, which is, we're going to be talking, as a council member just rightly said, we're going to be talking about dealing with, how families with kids with disabilities are coping and can better cope during this time. So Ms. Eliza Thompson is an assistant clinical professor in the Department of Hearing and Speech Sciences at the University of Maryland in College Park. She received a BS in Speech and Hearing Sciences from the George Washington University. Her MS is in Communication Sciences and Disorders from Howard University, and her Education Specialist degree from the George Washington University. So Eliza has an advanced certificate in bilingual education from Columbia University. She has a long-standing interest in the processes of communication with a focus on child language development and emergent literacy interventions. She has also served as a clinical supervisor and therapist overseas, specifically in Ghana, Haiti, and Kenya. And Eliza has worked previously as a speech language pathologist for Montgomery County Infants and Toddlers Program, as well as an adjunct faculty member and clinical educator at other universities in the Washington, D.C. metro area. Her specific clinical interests are in autism, bilingual speech language development, communication in multicultural populations, and language and literacy intervention. Wow. That's a lot of degrees and a lot of training. We're really happy to have you sharing your expertise with us today. So thank you for joining us. Yeah.
I'm happy to help.
Yeah. So Eliza, COVID-19 has disrupted everyone's routines. Dynamics in many homes have changed in so many cases really drastically. So what are some challenges of taking care of children with disabilities that you think families are facing during this pandemic? And
Sure. As the council member just mentioned, there are a lot of families that are working with children with special needs, and really all of us are being impacted by the current situation. Some of the things that I have heard are really just the difficulty with the everyday things, whether it's the telepractice, the home learning situation, just everyday routines. And I've also heard some families not feeling supported by the public schools in terms of having the necessary tools, materials, and accommodations for their child. And so essentially just trying to help families cope with this and recognizing that I think the big key and takeaway that I really want to mention is that none of us have been through a pandemic before. And so we're all really trying to do the best that we can. But when it comes to our special needs children, and really all children in general, this is really an area that we need to pay a little bit more attention to and try to do the best that we can with all the tools that we have.
Okay. Yeah, it's I remember one of our expert panelists last week talked about how to actually even talk to children about this pandemic. So I imagine it would be even more challenging for parents to explain what's happening to children with special needs.
Sure. I have a family that I work with now, and I know that one of the things that she has said to her son, who does have autism, is to say that the world is sick. And that is how she's explained what's going on. And so literally when you ask him, oh, you're not going to school right now, or you're not seeing your therapist, he'll say, yes, the world is sick. And we have to stay home and stay safe because the world is sick. And I really just thought that was an excellent way of explaining it in child's terms and the way that makes them understand, because most children understand what sickness means. You can spare them the details and the anxiety provoking news that we all watch. And just really provide it in the simplest terms as possible so that they can understand it in their way.
Yeah. It is indeed true. The world is definitely sick. So yeah. So how can families juggle the needs of everyone in the house, work, and then the needs of their children who have disabilities?
Well, one of the things that I've always stressed for all of us, not just children with families with children with special needs, but everyone in general, is to have some sort of a routine. And when I say a routine, I don't mean something like a schedule on the refrigerator that has 9 o'clock breakfast, 10 o'clock telepractice time, 11 o'clock math, 12 o'clock lunch, so on and so forth, but something a little bit more that works for whatever the needs of your family are. So they could be something as simple as just making sure when you get up in the morning, perhaps making your bed, having breakfast, having a set time for schoolwork, setting aside time for just basic play, setting aside time to go outside, setting aside time to have a snack, something like that, so that at least, because there's so much that is uncertain, having some sort of a routine in place is helpful. I know even for myself, I make sure that while I'm not necessarily going to work, well, I am going to work, but I'm going to work in my house. I get dressed in the morning. I may not necessarily put on a full face of makeup and fix my hair, but I am going to make up my bed and have breakfast and have my schedule in front of me so that I'm able to provide dutiful information to my students so that I'm feeling like I have a sense of a routine as well, because it really does help. But particularly for children with special needs, it's extremely, extremely important because they at least have an idea of what the day is going to look like rather than the unpredictability that we all face.
Yeah, I think that echoes what one of our panelists has actually mentioned earlier, that routine. And like you said, it doesn't have to be super structured, but some sort of framework where you can live within.
Exactly. And again, it's going to look different for every family. And that is understandable, especially in this day and age. So I know with this too much sharing information, sometimes you look and you see somebody else that has this perfect schedule with color coding and everything. It doesn't need to be that. If that's what works for your family, fine. But if, on one hand, it's really just a matter of setting aside some time to play with your child, setting aside a time for a dinner time, that would be appropriate. I don't know how many of your viewers watch the Today Show, but Al Roker, who is the meteorologist on the show, he has a young son with autism, and they have a routine where they call the segment called Cooking with Al. And so during the course of that routine, he'll plan out the meal and he will have his son label all of the foods. And I just think, first of all, I enjoy watching it because it gives me ideas of what to put for dinner myself. But also, I just really enjoy his interactions with his son because he'll ask him, okay, what's this? Oh, this is salt from Dario the Butcher. Where do we get it? In Italy. Okay, what is this? Tonight we're having, and he might say broccoli. And he'll say, no, it's in the broccoli family. What is it? Oh, yes, cauliflower. Something even as basic as that. That's a routine that is set up for them, and it's helping his son not only to increase his vocabulary, but also all of those everyday social skills.
Great, yeah, that's a great example. So how can families begin to engage, the older or younger siblings to help with the child with disabilities?
That is such a great question, because when I think about it, oftentimes families are so busy right now. Everyone is working from home or not. Perhaps, mom or dad are an essential worker and they have to be out of the home. So something that would really be beneficial would be perhaps giving the older child the opportunity to practice their reading. And so maybe they can read a book to the younger child, and it's going to allow them a chance to practice their skills, but also going to allow the child a chance to listen and ask questions, point to pictures, some of those things. Again, just providing a little bit of structure and responsibility for everyone so that mom and dad aren't feeling too stressed and feeling that they have to do everything, but it's also a way to incorporate practicality and a way that works for everyone. So it could be, iPad time together, shared book reading. But I really like the idea of having the older child read a book to the younger child. And it could be one of their books or something that's a little bit more appropriate, but something that's within the levels for both of them.
Great idea. Having a sibling read to the other siblings. That's a very good idea. And so the other thing that I've found while looking at the media and the data is that there's some challenges, at least for people and adults with disabilities, there's some challenges actually accessing the COVID-19 services and accessing testing and even, calling in and all of those, going to the primary care provider. So can you speak a little bit more about what's happening in the realm of children?
Sure. From my understanding, I know at University of Maryland, as well as a lot of the current public school systems and private schools, they're doing distance learning as well as virtual telepractice. And this looks different for every organization. For some children, they may incorporate things like submitting distance work. So it could be a take-home packet where the child can access some of the materials and do some of the worksheets during the time that school is closed. For others, it could include a teletherapy session just as we're having now, where they're using Webex, Zoom, Skype, and doing therapy in a way that is utilizing the screen. So it doesn't necessarily take the place of a person-to-person interaction. However, the child is still able to get some intervention. And like I said, it does look different for every family, every school system. And you also have to take into account the needs of the child, because not everyone is able to sit in front of a screen for an hour, 2 hours, or however long during the course of the day.
Okay, definitely great. So, do you think that the current policies and resources and guidelines that we're getting have enough information there to support families with children with disabilities? Or,
I mean, from my perspective, to be honest, I can't necessarily speak on that. I know that the current policies, they don't appear to be, but I do not know the ins and outs of it in order to make an educated to have an educated discussion about it. I do know that I read last night that the Department of Education has said that children with IEPs and special needs are still supposed to be getting the accommodations that they are provided in schools. Now, if that is happening, I don't know. But it is the law that they are supposed to be getting them currently. Okay. Despite school being closed.
Yeah, I just mentioned that because I've been hearing mixed things and reading, there's a lot on social media right now and we're seeing a lot of things. I know one of our speakers also mentioned that we have to be very cautious about where we get our news from and that there's too much news coming at us, so we have to be very cautious about where we
Exactly. So that's why I'm saying, I know what I've read, but quite frankly, I don't know enough to be able to say, yes, they're doing enough, or no, they're not.
Okay. Thank you. So this has been a lot of information and good information that I think is going to be helpful to a lot of our community and parents and families with children with disabilities. So we're going to move briefly to talk to people and parents that actually have kids with disabilities and also a service provider that provides services to families with kids with disabilities. So we're now going to talk to Ms. Miriam Kuroma, who's owner and founder of the Altruistic Nursing and Caring, which is a healthcare agency that provides care for children with disabilities, and Mrs. Agnes Bangura, who's a geriatric nursing assistant and also has a feisty, wonderful girl who has disabilities. to Afrique Today, and welcome again to this session of virtual conversations brought to you by Immigrant Community Services. So, Ms. Agnes, we know that you're very busy. Stay on. So thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today. Recorded earlier. Can you tell us a little bit more about yourself and your family? And I have some more questions for you.
Thank you for having me.
No worries. That's why I'm here.
I'm Agnes Bangura, and I have a very large family. We're a family of 7 here in the United States. I'm here with my husband, and we have 4 children. We have 3 boys and a girl, and the only girl is the one with the disability. She's 12 years old, and we live in Montgomery County, Germantown to be precise. And basically, I'm a caregiver, and my husband too is a social worker. So basically, that's what our family entails.
Okay. Thanks for telling us that. So can you tell us a little bit more about your daily routine, what it was like before COVID-19 and kind of what it is now with COVID-19?
Well, before COVID-19, I mean, since we have a daughter with disability, we always make sure, one thing we did is like making everybody know what our responsibility is with regards to our daughter with disability. So we always make time in between our schedules. I'm a caregiver, so I make sure I always schedule my work so I have time for my daughter. Even though she gets caregivers that come in and out to help her, and she goes to school too, but we always make sure we make time for her. So with the COVID coming in now, is just a little stressful for us because we have a lot of challenges with regards to her care, how we can cope with our going ins and out. So what basically we did, we just limited ourselves from going in, because we know that the COVID is, according to what the specialists are saying, she's more vulnerable to the disease because she already has a condition. So because of her, we made sure we sensitize everybody in the house, because like I told you before, we all have a responsibility towards her. So because of that, we made sure we sensitize with regards to prevention, control, and what to do with regards to her health. So I still go to work, and for now I'm the only one that actually leaves the house. We want to make sure we minimize our going in and out of the house so as to protect the entire family against the COVID-19.
Okay. So is she still able to get caregivers coming to the house to help care for her?
Yes, she still gets care. Her care continues.
Great. Okay. And so in regards to you and you going to work, that has changed because you've changed your schedule, and I'm thinking your husband too has stopped working. So that's a change from the COVID-19.
Well, my husband actually works from home.
Okay.
Since the COVID-19 started, yeah. So he works from home, and I go to work just for 5 hours. I cut down my hours because I have to be home. Before, I used to work at night. I go to work at night and then come in the morning because of her schedule, because most of the time we have appointments to different hospitals. So because of that, I always choose a night shift, so I have the day to be able to care for her and go to her appointments. But now as it is, because of the COVID-19, I took a 5-hour job that I do from 3 to 8 p.m., 3 p.m. to 8 p.m. So in the morning, now that they have the online school going on, most of the time I have to be around to make sure I set her up and then for her classes. So that's what I do basically in the morning with her before I go to work.
Okay, I was just about to ask about the school situation. So you're helping with our online school, and then how are your other kids doing with school? Are you also helping with school for them? And
Yeah, well, they are doing fine. Like the eldest he just turned 16 actually yesterday. So most of the time he does the technical aspect of it. He sets them up. Yeah, I have an 8-year-old too. He sets them up. So she just finished her speech therapy. She does her speech therapy on Zoom. The only challenge we have is actually the physical and occupational therapy, because that actually is not easy to do on Zoom, because it needs the professionals actually have to help her with her walking and stuff, because she actually has physical disability. Okay. So that's the only challenge we are having now, because the contraction looks like it's coming back, because she's not be able to do something physically, even though we engage her going up and down the stairs in the house, but that looks like it's not enough. So that's one of the greatest challenge we are having with her right now.
okay. Wow, so it seems like everybody in the house is helping, and you guys are really working to do your best in the midst of the circumstances. So can you tell us a little bit about how you take care of yourself and self-care for you in the midst of being a caregiver in your home and a caregiver outside of the home?
Well, basically, I'm somebody that I like walking around, like doing stuff, taking care of my house, doing my cleanings. I love cooking. I like to cook. So almost every morning I have to fix something. It doesn't matter what is in the refrigerator. I still have to do something. Where in taking care of myself, I'm pretty much on the same schedule. I still have time to, do my motherly duty around with my kids. I have a 2-year-old. Okay. Yeah, so in the morning, and then we have their grandma home. Actually, we have a grandma home, so she helps with most of their care in the morning. So I just come in with the food and stuff. I still have time for myself and my husband and my kids.
Oh, that's amazing. You guys have really got a system that is working. So thank you so much for sharing a little bit about yourself and your family. So Ms. Miriam, thank you so much for joining us. I know that you actually provide care to
yes. people. Hi, my name is Miriam. I'm an immigrant from Sierra Leone. So we are a family of 5. I have 2 boys and a daughter. My oldest son, which is, he's 25, he's the one that have cerebral palsies. So as Isa too can relate, in the beginning, there was a lot of challenge because we didn't have a lot of resources and information. But we are lucky, we were in Montgomery County, and the educators at this school give us a lot of information. But out of the school system, like when they graduate from high school, it's a big challenge. Because before my son turned 21, as you guys know, if you make certain income, you are not qualified for many resources, which tend to affect the lifestyle of your other kids. Because as immigrants, we work hard and we try to provide as much as we can for our family here and abroad. But based on your income, you usually don't get help. So with my son, basically for his 18 years of life, we used to provide a caregiver for him because I work, my husband works, and he goes to school. He needs to get ready before he starts school in the morning, and both of us have to leave the house early. And when he gets home, there should be someone there to help him because he has both physical challenges and he's nonverbal. He can understand everything, but communication and physical accept was a challenge. So it was a really challenge for us as immigrants getting the resources that are out there. And when he turned 21, we were able to get the DDA and the waiver program, which unfortunately we didn't know it exists till it was late. So we get help that comes in the house in and out. And then we take over because he really required 24 hours here. Okay. He's alert and oriented, but because of his physical disability, if he needs to go to the bathroom, somebody needs to take him. If he needs to eat, somebody needs to prepare his food and get him ready. So it was really difficult and challenging, but as I said, with the other siblings, they came in and helped. At least they would help with giving him his food. If he's thirsty, give him water. So that's the brief history about my family life. And as I talked to Josephine, I'm a small business owner. And the reason why I decided to start the agency, my son used to have caregivers that comes in with the owner of the agency that I've never spoken to. I've never met her. I didn't know what was going on, but being a registered nurse, I fill the schedule and fill them in. Fortunately, they were great caregivers. So based on that, I decided to say that since I have the knowledge, at least to go over and have an agency to see how I can help someone like me that have a child with special need and what are the expectations. Because there's a different forms of disability. So not just the physical, the emotional, the mental, especially when they are teenager, young adults, it can be challenging. So I decided to go into that and see how can I help someone like me.
Great, thank you so much for doing that, for actually taking from your experience and deciding to use that to help other people. So how has, I guess, your business and work within the business changed since COVID-19 has come? Have there been changes in staffing levels and you and your employees and all of that?
Yeah, absolutely. I have some family members that they are not comfortable having people come to their house, which I can understand. But luckily because most of my clients, just as you know, as an immigrant started business, I have for over 3 years, I have 10 or 11 clients. And some of my clients, the family members have stepped in to be the care provider. And even with me, I'm in a process right now with coordinating with my job and everything, my husband's schedule, to minimize the people that comes in, because my job is a high-risk job, and having someone come in is challenging. And the other challenge my son is facing right now, he cannot go outside. Okay. And we have self-directed where we direct his care, because I was not able, after I graduated from high school, to find a program that really meets his needs. So we decided to have a program that we can center towards his needs. And going to physical therapy, he cannot go anymore. They do the Zoom where they give instruction as to what to do, and we incorporate it at home. I take him for a walk around the house, so at least he can use his muscles around. And sometimes when the weather is nice, I just take all of them in the car, we go for a drive. So he cannot just be enclosed in the house. But for his speech, we cannot do speech anymore because it's not possible for him to go. So it's been really challenging because psychologically, you cannot go out, you don't know what's going on, and they know we're in the healthcare field, coming home. But what we did in the house, we try to be 6 feet away, and everybody had their own spot where they sit. And my husband is in the healthcare professor too, so he's at a more higher risk than me. So he doesn't go to his room, he doesn't take care of him. So I do the hands-on and the siblings, and everybody just make sure they have their certain spot where they sit in the house, and we minimize as much interaction with him as possible, which is difficult, but we want him to be safe.
Yeah, so I see like some of the things can be done at home, but there are some high level skills like the physical and the speech that we really needed the professionals to be able to come along with.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, just like you said, with immigrant community, the resource to know, like with my son, challenges we'll have in friends, because he understands everything, but his muscles prevent him from doing things. So it's tough, but we're doing the best we could to provide for him. Our life is centered towards his needs.
So I guess I know you've just mentioned that it's tough, and you're a parent and you're a service provider. So how are you really coping with those challenges? It's like you have several layers of challenges happening in your circumstances. How are you coping with that?
I think most of the time I try to do communication and planning. So like with my my clients, I develop a personal relationship with them. I call them, I check on them. They can call me every time. They have my business number and they have my personal cell phone number. So because of that relationship I have with them, they can call me anytime. So I check on them. And my home situation, I have 2 college students, so they are set up in their bedrooms doing their assignments and trying to do the best they could. It's just like we all try to educate each other and pick each other's up. When one person is down, the other person tries to support each other.
Okay. So would you happen to know any resources that might be available for families like yours and Ms. Agnes that you can offer to some community people, things that people might not know?
Yeah, the thing I can advise people when their kids are in the public school, usually they get support when they're in school, but when they get out of school, they should make sure, even when they're in school, to try to apply like for the mail and waiver program, which I was not aware of. They can apply for them and give them the schedule when they are home and when they are not home. So at least, even if it's 3 hours in the morning, they can get someone to come in the morning, get their child ready for school. And then when they come after school, the person will be there for a couple of hours to stay there till the family get home. So they don't have to go through what I go through, having to pay someone to do living, which most people won't afford to pay. And before they graduate from high school, they should make sure they have enough information about DDA program. Because when you're in school, you get the support. The day they graduate from school is all on you. So during the transition, they should make sure they have DDA, they get the support program, they call, they make appointment, they go to different programs to see which program is good for their child. They should just not depend on somebody else doing for them. Go there, sit there, observe, and do your assignment before you go there. Make sure you have enough questions. You have to be the advocate for your child. No matter, that's paramount, because after that graduation, you're on your own.
Thank you so much for sharing your experiences. And I guess my last question for you would be, is there any last word of advice for members of the community that might be facing a situation like yours, especially now that you can say, this is one thing that I've used that is working for me?
I think the one information I can give my community, they should not feel embarrassed of their situation. Ask questions. Like with me, with my son, since he was young, we take him out to public gathering, to every family function, so people can know. Ask questions. Look for someone that is in a wheelchair that you meet in a parking lot, in the shopping center. Introduce yourself to them and ask them what resources they are using, so you can create a network. Because most people in our community, when they have special need kids, it's look like a taboo. They keep the child inside, they hold things inside, so they don't go outside to ask information. Feel free. be proud of your child for who they are and love them for who they are. I think the more you expose them outside, the more you will get, somebody can just come to you and give you information.
Definitely being out there seeking information. Thank you so much. Ms. Agnes, do you have any final words of advice to other members of our community who might be in a similar circumstance, especially now with the COVID-19?
Well, what I would like to advise families like me, families that have special needs, especially the immigrant community, just like Miss Marima just said, letting people know your situation is one step ahead, because letting people know your situation is like a half problem solved for you. So, I mean, like with the COVID-19 right now going on, it's like it's like a collaboration, incorporating every member of a family to work towards the safety of the individual that we have in the house with the disability. Like I said before, even though our children in the house already know that they have a responsibility to love and care for their sister with disability, when the COVID-19 came, we also brought them together again to let them aware that this is our new normal and it has to take a different dimension. We have like to be washing our hands. So as we get information out there about the COVID-19, we use that information to come and update whatever we've told them. We keep updating it so as to keep our loved ones safe from the disease. So I can extend that to all families that have kids with disability to do likewise, so we have a safer community for them.
Great. Thank you so much, Ms. Agnes and Ms. Miriam. I think some of the things, they're really the things that are part of our African culture, that community, living in a community and helping each other. It's kind of the whole, the things that our families and our ancestors have done way back in the past. So it's really going back to our roots and being a community, even in our house, to care for each other and look out for each other. So thank you so much again for taking time to talk to us today. And now we'll go back to Alan in the studios and Dr. Eliza to talk about more needs and care that we can for people with disabilities. Thank you all.
Thanks for having us.
Disabilities and also service providers. And they've been talking a little bit about how it has been challenging caring for their children and the disruption in the schedules and how they're working with the whole family to make sure that they're providing care for their child with disabilities. How important do you think self-checks are for the parents and the caregiver? And how can families prevent themselves from burning out?
Absolutely. As I mentioned before, routines and this whole COVID-19 pandemic is something new for all of us. No one today was alive, well, at least now that I think of, in terms of the Spanish flu from the 1918. And so this is something new for all of us. And so we all have to give ourselves some grace and extend that grace to your children as well. So this is the time, if there's ever a time to be kind to one another, this would be the time. Burnout is real. And if you don't take care of yourself, you're not going to be able to take care of your children and those that depend on you. So some self-care that even I've been practicing is going out for a walk, enjoying the outside, even if it's just brief moments, but really taking that time to unplug, step away from the devices, and just really give yourselves that time. You know, I think the one thing that this whole COVID-19 situation has shown us is how important human contact is. And I think given the situation, if you're lucky enough to have your loved ones healthy and at home with you, this is a time to do that human contact, touch one another, read to each other, sit and attend to books together, and really just playing with your children. But I mean, above all, just stepping away from the screen and doing that human contact, whether it's conversation, whether it's shared book reading, whether it's play, that really, or even just sitting in a room by yourself, you know, giving yourself that time to disconnect, I think would be the best advice that I can give in terms of being able to avoid some of that burnout that some of us, we're all probably feeling at this point.
Okay. That's great. And a reminder to our viewers, we're going to be taking questions soon, so please send in your questions. But Eliza, one of the things Ms. Miriam and I think Ms. Agnes also mentioned was the fact that, you know, they get help from the community. But as a community, some people with kids with special needs are afraid to even tell other family members or even bring their children out because of stigma. So can you speak to this notion of stigma, which I don't know where it comes from, it's really unfounded, but it's impacting care, or it could impact care?
Absolutely, absolutely. There's a lot of stigma in many communities, but I think particularly in the African community, there is still some stigma that's related to children with special needs or even asking for help. And whether it comes from pride or our ancestors, who knows? But the current situation today is that if you do need help, if you have a child with special needs, do not be afraid to reach out. I know when I worked in infants and toddlers, that was one of the largest things that we would often see is the late referral of children with special needs from the immigrant community. And a lot of it did surround around the stigma or even lack of knowing, because oftentimes we know that from some of the countries that we come from, there is limited help for even, you know, typically developing children. So when you have an atypically developing child, sometimes that there's a stigma that's related to that, not knowing that there's help available or even knowing what a speech pathologist does. My parents are Ghanaian immigrants, and I can tell you, up until I went to college, my sophomore year, I had no idea what a speech pathologist even was, or the fact that there was actually a profession of someone who was a communication specialist and worked with not just children with special needs, but people as a whole to work with communication disorders. So there's that. I mean, even as the council member just mentioned, he has a child with special needs. There is no shame that is related to this. This is a situation that affects all of us. And the more we talk about it and the more we share our collective issues as well as our collective joys, that is how we're going to be able to help one another all together.
Thank you so much. This information has been very invaluable to our community. So we'll now proceed to the viewer questions, and I can see them coming in. So let me see. And this question seems pretty targeted to you. So does your agency connect cerebral palsy patients with others in similar situations to help them make friends?
Actually, yes. So I work for the University of Maryland at College Park. So as an assistant clinical professor, we do have a clinic there. It's not necessarily targeted towards children or those with cerebral palsy, but we do provide services to all populations with special needs. And in terms of being able to make some of those connections, you should be able to get that from your local community centers. But if there's a need, I mean, certainly we can try and point you in the direction. That is not our sole purpose. However, we are able to help as best as we can.
Okay, thank you. And I have another question. I think this is from potentially a parent. I've noticed that my child's negative behaviors and anxieties have increased since the quarantine. What can I do?
Well, as we talked about, routines. I can't stress that enough. Again, everyone's routine is going to be a little different, but stepping away from that screen time. We know that the blue light from our devices, whether it's an iPad, phone, the computer, it can have detrimental effects, not just for us as adults, but also for some of our little ones whose brains are developing. So I would encourage them to try and step away from the screen. And I don't just want to say step away from the screen without providing some other options. So going outside, if that's an option, just basic play. Do something without electronics. So whether it's flashcards, whether it's reading a book, whether it's just getting down on the floor, and playing with your child with cars, with dolls, with pretend food. You can even take a laundry basket and put your child in there and pull them around the house, make shift it's a car, a train, just basic stuff. But I would really encourage you to try and step away from the screen as much as possible and provide some routines in the home that allows them to have some level of predictability so that they know what's coming next.
Great. The next question I have is, my child has limited attention. How do I get him to benefit from virtual learning?
So as I mentioned before, I know that virtual distance learning looks different for every school and every school district. And I also recognize that there are some children who have limited attention spans and can't necessarily sit for the hour, 2 hours, or whatever it is. So what I would encourage is to ask your child's teacher or provider if they're able to provide a packet, some take-home work, some tangible things that would allow them to still learn. And some of our children really do benefit from that sensory hands-on approach. So maybe if they're writing, maybe if they're manipulating materials and touching things, it might make them a little easier for them to learn, but also to attend to what is going on. And then the other piece of it is too, if the session is an hour, do what you can. Give the child the opportunity to sit. If they can only sit for 20 minutes, you know what? At least you've tried. That's the 20 minutes that you have for the day. But try and provide as many different options for there to still be some level of learning. And it doesn't necessarily have to be that traditional distance thing if that's not an option, because not only are we talking about situations with sitting, but there are some families that may not necessarily have access or may only have one device for the entire family. And so if we're talking about a family with multiple children, that access to the device might be limited for the child with special needs. So again, do what you can with the time frames and given the information that you have.
Great. So as much as you can, just ensure that they're learning. It's funny.
Absolutely.
That's something Kavanaugh said. He said he loved learning during this pandemic. So learning is...
He sure did.
He's such a great young man. How can people without kids help parents with kids with special needs virtually? Do you have any suggestions?
Sure. I've actually seen, again, the Today Show, I believe. That's what I seem to watch in the mornings these days. But I believe there was someone who is doing some reading. And I think they're reading a book or, almost like a story time. I think it was Dolly Parton, actually. But she's reading these books and she's having like virtual nighttime sessions. So perhaps that could be something. Picking a book, calling, your neighbor or your friend and trying to see what you can do for them. I love the idea of literacy in terms of reading to them. But also, you know what? You maybe just calling them and asking, how can I help you? Maybe it's something like going to the store for them or, coming by and bringing practicing some social distance, of course, but perhaps leaving something at the front door. But I think the best thing to do is every family's needs are different. So essentially ask them what they need and then see if you can be of service to them.
Yeah, good. Asking what they need. Okay. And another question that just came in is, I think it's a parent asking this one. Is it okay for me to not participate in my child's school's long distance learning program?
Sure. I mean, again, this virtual distance situation looks different for everyone. And I'm sure some of us would like to participate, but if it's not an option for you at this point, and this is not something that you can do, have a conversation with your child's teacher to determine if you're not able to participate. But just fully recognize that should you choose to not participate, know that there are consequences, meaning that we've been out of school now since March. If the school system does not open again until September or possibly even January, if you're not participating, what does learning look like in your home? How are you ensuring that your child is still learning in a way that makes sense to you and also makes sense for that child? And again, it's different for every family. So I don't think we can use a one-size-fits-all model saying that you must participate in this distance learning. Do what you can. If your participation looks like 20 minutes of an hour session, logging in once a week, or, again, doing those take-home packets that a teacher has provided, then that's what it looks like. But just recognize that there needs to be some level of learning during this time because it's a really fluid situation and we really just do not know when we're going to go back. So just recognize that there are some consequences to that should you choose not to participate.
Okay. Yeah. So it definitely just depends on the family situation, but
it does. But I mean, if you have a child with special needs, your child most likely does have an IEP, and that is a law that is mandated that the schools are supposed to provide services as best as they can. But again, this is America and everybody has a choice. So if you choose not to participate, you make sure that you're having that conversation with your child's classroom teacher and trying to provide some other sort of plan B, plan C, or some other option, again, to ensure that there is some sort of learning going on during this time.
Okay. This one is a very interesting question. So this parent is asking how much screen time is too much?
So this is a question that I get a lot. Let me start by saying that the American Academy of Pediatrics does not recommend screen time for children under the age of 3. However, I don't think it's realistic in today's day and age, especially now when we're all on the Zoom conference and Zooming and Webex and Skype and virtual learning. Just remember that little people are just like us big people. If we're getting headaches and brain fogs and screen fatigue from too much screen time, I would encourage you to use some of that common sense and safe practice for your child. You know, so don't allow all day interaction with the screen time. Try and provide some sensory breaks where you're stepping away from the screen and doing something. It's often very common for children to be addicted to the screens. Heck, I think I'm addicted to my screen. I know that's the first thing I do is when I wake up is to look for my phone or my iPad. And so if your child is addicted, I don't want to just say, take away the screen time without offering some other options. Going outside, if it's an option, just basic play. I love the idea of using books, books that are interactive, pop-up books, books that have some sort of touch and feel. It needs to do something to take place of that online interaction, because, you know, phones these days, books these days don't light up and jump and spin the way videos do. And so you have to find a way to make the book interactive. But I would really incorporate stepping away from that screen every so often. I can't give you a prescribed amount of hours, but I would encourage you to not allow your child to be on the screen all day, every day, not allow anyone really in the house. So really using some of that common sense to know that, okay, if your child has been watching a show for an hour or two, this might be a great time to have a conversation, have them help you with cleaning up, you know, maybe talk about what it is that you're making for dinner, do some shared book reading activities. And if your child is going to be on that iPad, use the iPad like a book, you know, so that you're going to stop it at plausible times and ask questions. You look at it using some of those interactive books that are on YouTube, where you're actually having to touch the screen and flip through it and really interact with the iPad almost as if it's an interactive book.
Okay. Oh, that was actually answering a little bit of this question that we have here, saying that distance learning is not an option for my child. How can I make sure that he or she is still learning while at home at this time? So
there you go.
Yeah, some of those responses. I know I've seen like on sidewalks, like a lot of drawings with numbers and people doing math on the sidewalks. So I guess there's a lot of strategies.
Absolutely. That art therapy. I know when I was at school at GW, actually, I remember during finals, the art therapy department would actually come and bring us chalk. And we would all go out on the street, and they would close down one of the streets, I believe was G Street, right in front of the School of Education. And we would have chalk and we would draw on there. And you've seen these adult coloring books and all of those things. Not all kids like to color, but that's certainly an option. It's getting them some of that sidewalk chalk, going out there. I love Play-Doh. Again, that's sensory interactive, just getting the hands involved in some way, shape, or form. I don't think you can underestimate the power of being outside, getting some fresh air, and just touching nature.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you so much. And I think we've come to the end of the program so far. Do you have any parting words or words of wisdom for our families that you haven't said already? You know?
Sure. I mean, again, I think it bears repeating. None of us have gone through this pandemic before. We're all doing the best that we can. You're doing the best that you can. Your children are doing the best that you can. If there's ever a time to be kind and give ourselves some grace, this would be the time. It's going to look different for everyone. So just do what you can, given the tools that you have, and we will all get through this.
Thank you so much, Eliza. This has been very informative, and I hope your viewers have learned a lot, because I have. So we have reached the end of our show, and I would like to thank our guests. I'd like to thank Kavanaugh Bell with his Cool and Dope Foundation and his Love is Greater Than COVID-19 Food Pantry. So please go out and support him. You know, he said you can let them know if you have food products that they can pick up or just donate to their cause. It's a very great cause, and he's a wonderful young man. We would like to thank Council Member Elijah Wojawando, who came in and gave us updates on the testing, the food supplies that they're giving in Montgomery County, and also the rent program. So if you have any questions about that, please go on his website, call his office. He's always there and willing to work for us and our community. And then we'd like to thank you, Eliza. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us. And Mrs. Miriam Koroma, Mrs. Agnes Bangura, thank you for coming to share what's happening with your family, with our community, and ways that we as a community can work together to take care of ourselves and our families. Thank you, our viewers, for joining us. We hope that you can join us again next week for more sessions that are of information on how we're coping or how to cope during this COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you, and over to you, Alan, in the studios.
Thank you so much, Manka, and thank you so much, our guests. I think you share a lot useful information that our viewers can use. Of course, a lot of people ask me how to watch Afrique Today. Is very simple. You can watch Afrique Today at the same time at 4 platforms: Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and using Afrique Today app. Afrique Today already available on Amazon Fire Stick. Please go to Roku TV or Amazon Fire Stick and you will be able to watch Afrique Today. Thank you for watching, and have a good evening. Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you. I think we're done now.
I have your email, so let me reach out to you.
Please do.
Kavanaugh, you gotta get up.
What time is it?
It's 7:30. Come on.
I'm coming.
Look at all this food. What's up, guys? Unfortunately, I can't go inside because I don't want to get this year sick. But that doesn't stop me from helping. Bakery. Thank you, Butler's Orchard. Love is greater than COVID-19 community pantry because COVID-19 is serious. I'm just going to do this every weekend because people need what they need until coronavirus stops. I'm not giving up.